Hi, I'm Joe Curtatone, and this is my golden hour.
Oh God, what's going on? Where am I going? Dad?
Yes, my son. I am Deuce, the deer god.
I'm so confused. Who am I?
Derek. Your true name is Darkules.
Wait, what?
Yes. You are Darkules, the god of the forest. Season 5. Hosted by your favorite podcast host, Big Bochi. You already know the deal, mother. What's up? So the double clap signifies the start of an episode. But before we start, hey everybody, my name is Connor Holloway, and this is the Golden Hours podcast. And if you by chance get any sort of value, entertainment, or information from this episode, just share with a friend. That's all we ask, right, Sarah? That's all we ask over here.
Great to me.
I'm vetted, so I know you know how the show goes down. And also, before I introduce my guest on the right, who else is in the room today?
Hey, this is Sarah. How's it going?
Sarah.
Oh, yeah, I'm Mayor Joe Curtatone's campaign manager. Thanks for having us.
Well, now you just revealed the guest. What's wrong with you, man?
Spoiler alert.
And then
Yo, Big Fresh, checking in for another episode.
my guy, Big Fresh. What a nickname, right?
Best one I've heard so far today.
Well, you don't have any nicknames?
For me, I don't know. I'm sure there's a few out there about me. Sarah, do you have a nickname about me?
There must be a
There
nickname
must
for
be a
you, right?
nickname, yeah, I don't know.
After, is this going to be your ninth? This is your ninth election, 10th term?
Yeah. It'd be, I have 16 years. I've done 8 terms, so yeah, it would be mine.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's put it.
Dominance.
Let's do something.
So on my right, I have the mayor of the city that we're currently recording in, and this is his first time in the space. This is Mayor Joe Curtatone. And
Hey.
and so you said Mark said his last name wrong?
Oh, I'm not trying to, call anyone out.
We're not starting to beef here. Don't
This is
worry.
McGovern?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. He's Cambridge.
Well, how do most people normally pronounce it?
Curtatone. There are some who say, Curtatone, but I don't correct them. Long story there.
Well, I was doing a little research, and when whatever Michelle Obama dinner you were part of, the guy introduced you. I think he said Curtatone, right?
Yeah, that was Tiki Barber.
Was that Tiki Barber?
Tiki Barber.
The football player?
Yeah, when we launched Let's Move in the White House in February 2010.
And he said Curtatone,
Yeah, he tried to have some fun with me.
and you were pissed.
I think I made fun of his bald head at that point. So
How did you, as a mayor at that time, get involved in the federal level politics?
on that issue, we were leading the the national and in many ways the global dialogue on taking on the childhood obesity epidemic. And there's a program we launched in partnership with Tufts University called Shape Up Somerville. It is a first community-based systems environmental approach to reversing the trends of childhood obesity. We then advised incoming First Lady Michelle Obama and her team on that. It was something she cared about as part of the Let's Move campaign. And
So you reached out to the White House initially, or they reached out to you?
Her chief of staff was a gentleman named Sam Cass, and he had heard me speak in Washington on the topic of child obesity and the Shape Up Somerville approach. And we were invited to engage with them. We shared our approach with them, and they embedded that much into what is Let's Move and what was then. And unless I'm sure Trump has already dismantled that as well. And we launched it together in February 2010 in the White House, and Tiki Bobby was there.
So what is Let's Move? Like kids get out and walk type thing?
Well, it really embodied the tenets of Shape Up Somerville, incentivizing people, thinking about the system around us to get people to eat smart, play hard, move more. It wasn't telling you, hey,
You're fat.
You're obese. You need to live. No, it's how we live our lives, and the concept is there's nothing that the mayor can promulgate or declare to say, we have to do X, Y, Z. But if we think about our environment, the built environment that incentivizes you to walk or bike, food access, food policy, food security, all the options, we wanted to, in essence, make the healthy choice the easy choice, not based on convenience. So. And it worked in Somerville. When we did this experiment with Tufts University, our kids in Somerville against other control communities gained less weight, and that's what sort of was the foundation in helping Let's Move launch on a much broader scale.
What do you do for diet? Like, are you like a total health freak?
No, I have. No, hey, listen, what's your mother say, or your grandmother say? Everything in moderation. I try to make healthy choices.
Well, how old are you? Like 50, 52?
53.
Yeah, you look good for 53, man.
Hey, man, I'm trying to hang in there. I try to train 4 days a week. Besides the campaign, I'm out there knocking doors. I've hit more than 3,000 doorbells, so that's keeping my weight down. And it's hard when you're doing this type of job or any type of work. And my wife and I, we have 4 boys, so the days are long. And making sure you can ground yourself, either yoga, run, and walk, and biking, and get into the gym just for mental stability. That's what I try to do. I try to eat clean.
What's like eating clean to you?
Not a lot of
sugar.
heavy foods. Listen, I like my sweets. I do have some restrictions, around dairy just because of
I don't do dairy
allergies,
either, yeah.
and I eat gluten free because my wife and 2 of my boys have celiac disease, and so I eat cleaner. But look, I try to eat in moderation, not eat too heavy, not eat crazy stuff late at night, complex
but
carbs.
you're Italian though, right?
I am, but hey, I'm at my mother's house every Sunday. She's right up the hill here, by the way. You got to come over. We're gonna do this podcast from her kitchen, and
Whoa.
And so it's a mom's house or Nana's house on Sundays for my kids, and then the leftovers on Monday and Tuesday.
And that's just a carb blast.
Oh, it's
right?
awesome, yeah. You gotta have a little fun,
What,
burn it off.
What is it like? Just pasta?
There's always a pasta. And then the gravy, and then and there's always a second, like a chicken or beef or something, and she makes the whole. It's multiple courses. It's great.
Is your mouth watering right
Yeah,
now?
I love to go back up there. Tell you, it's great on Sundays at Mom's house.
Well, you should get a Fitbit. This would actually be pretty cool on a campaign tip. If you got him a Fitbit, and when you're going door to door, see how many steps you actually record.
Should
I've
do
told
that.
him to, yeah.
So of course I don't listen to Sarah.
Well, so Sarah, how did you get involved in campaign, in the entire process?
I just ended up here somehow. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like I stumbled down a rabbit hole.
I think I asked her the other day, what are you doing here?
Well, how do you build a team when it's re-election time? Do you take care of that? Do you have like a trusted advisor who does most of it?
I'm pretty lucky. I have a lot of long time and new supporters who, love where Somerville's going and love how we approach the challenge of the city. So I have those relationships. Yeah, and as we think about the next election, and in this case, when you have opposition, we just mobilize folks, and it basically comes down to me picking up the phone and say, hey, we could use your help in the campaign, and then we certainly put together a team of staff. We were lucky to get Sarah on board. I think the jury's still up, but I think I was pretty fortunate to get her on board.
You seem very poignant. You seem like you're on the ball.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
That would be you.
Have you always been a very concise decision maker?
I just learned 2 seconds ago that I am, but I'll take it.
Yeah, someone has to kick the mayor in the backside once in a while. Keep him in line. She does
I'm
a good
more than
job.
happy to fill that role.
Well, how do you deal with time management? Like, what is your traditional day-to-day like? Because your responsibilities as mayor is a little bit different than Mark McGovern, because he oversees like the city council and holds those meetings. Are you like a fast decision maker? Do you mull over decisions? Does it take you time?
So my role is different. I'm actually the CEO and chief operating officer and everything.
You have access to the budget.
Yeah, it's a strong executive form of government. It's much like Boston, and it is a time suck. It's hard. I mean, and campaigning every 2 years is hard to manage everything. But am I a quick decision maker? I'd say yes, but I like to consider myself a thorough decision maker. I want to see the data. I'll ask probative questions, push on it sideways, and then some of the decisions are pretty straightforward. Some of them, require a little bit more thought, and you just take the best data and information in front of you and make the best call you have based on the values or the goal we're trying to achieve. And some a little bit more complex. Leadership isn't always straightforward about it, a yay or nay or something. It's a lot of times it's empowering the community and engaging them in that conversation. So.
Is there a benefit to making faster decisions in your position, though?
I think the ability to make decisions when warranted, quick decisions, is essential. Yeah.
So, like, can you give me an example of when it was a benefit to you to be able to do something quick?
I think that happens daily because on the operation side of the city, the things that are very linear that have to happen, a public works decision or something in finance, a decision to shift funds or how we're going to leverage certain financial decisions that have to be made on a regular and real-time basis.
Like what? Just like what would a financial decision be?
I would, we'd have to make a call that. A simple one, if we need to lock down a particular rate for our energy usage, and then there was an opportunity that came up, and you might not need a decision within the next 5 minutes, but certainly within the next day. That's on top of everything else, and it's important to make a decision then. And those aren't very pressure cooker decisions; they're pretty straightforward, and that's absorbing information, being informed. Okay, why do we want to do this? What's the benefit? Let's do that. Let's move forward. Those aren't the most complex decisions.
So do you have a specific year-end goal in mind on a financial tip when you start? Like, okay, this is where we want to push the city this year. Is that normally how it works? And then you map all your decisions around that?
So, we have about a $250 million operating budget. Some of a lot less than Mark. Mark's got more money in Cambridge. The only thing Cambridge has more than us is a lot more money.
Because all the biotech companies?
And they drink a lot of Chardonnay down on Brattle Street. But
beef. This beef.
But we have to run a balanced budget. You can't run a deficit budget, and sometimes decisions happen around that we might have something driving a budget line item. Like overtime, it might be a variable causing more overtime or sick time of use or something that's driving a variable. But we have to run a balanced budget. Our goal is obviously to be balanced, but we don't just want to be balanced. We manage the budget. You want to end up, beefing up your reserves at the end of the day. So if you have, for instance, your department has a $10 million budget, well, our goal is for you to deliver the services within that $10 million parameter, but really to manage that. So at the end of the day, we want you to use that money efficiently that you may have excess left at the end of the fiscal year. So we want to perform to our goals and objectives, deliver the services we promised, use that money wisely, because in a city like Somerville, we don't, again, unlike Cambridge, we don't have as much discretionary money we're spending.
You still got some money, though.
Yeah, we have enough to do the things we need to do, but we want to be strategic. We want to allocate the resources accordingly. Hey, if something's working, we want to beef up the spending there. If it's not, we want to pivot and reallocate that money to something that we need to do, because there's always more in terms of demand and things we need to do than the amount of money we're able to spend.
When you say something's working, you mean you're providing funds for something in the city that's generating more money for the city, correct?
Well, I think if it's a program in a particular department or a service in a particular agency, is it delivering the impact, the positive impact? Is it meeting our goals and objectives? The question we always have is, if it is, why? If it's gone above and beyond, why? And certainly if it hasn't, why? And understand the variables that impact and that you want to manage real time using data. It's something that sets Somerville aside. One of the things we adopted in how we manage, we use real-time analytics. We set up our Somerset department, and these are analysts embedded in the administration, and we're looking at data on a real-time basis to understand and hold ourselves accountable and be more transparent. And you as the agency head have to respond to that, Well, here are the goals and objectives. And yeah, I'm within budget, but are you meeting, for instance, in public works, are we filling the potholes as quick as we should be filling? When you call up 311 and make a service request to the city. And that plays out in every department, so we're meeting our expectations or we're not, and then we understand what variables are driving that result.
Have you always had a really high motor? Like, have you always been on a go?
I'm high. I'm jacked up all the time. I love doing. Plus, it's easy to get pumped up about Somerville. It's such a cool place.
Well, yeah, you grew up here, right?
Yeah, I grew up right up the hill.
What was this when you were growing up? Do you remember?
This alleyway, I don't remember much back here, but the playground here was Stone Park, and it was really an asphalt park. And I just remember we had a little neighborhood wars. My park was up the hill at Corbett Playground, now called Corbett McKenna. We had big wiffle ball tournaments, so we played the kids from Stone Park and
you guys
up the hill.
Fight.
But the best part
drink
down here,
beers under the bleachers.
exactly at the end. But the best part was right at the edge here, where Bronwyn is. There was a great sub shop called White Sport. Now, there's actually still one in Magoon Square, but
I've seen White Sports.
Yeah, in Magoon Square, but the one here was famous because you'd come in and you named the sub you wanted, and they'd take a giant French bread,
roll. Baguette.
Baguette. We didn't call it baguette back then. So, and they had this board with lines. If you wanted a jumbo, half jumbo, small, and they'd line it up and take the knife and cut it. You could get, like, if you wanted to get a jumbo cheeseburger sub, you'd have an entire French roll of cheeseburger or Italian. It was a great spot. I mean, that's what you came down here for. It was cool.
And then you became a health freak.
Yeah, I
no
imagine
more
that.
white sport
But
subs.
I'll be honest with you. I could go for a sub one of these. Every once in a while, you got to have
Do you ever go to Bronwyn? Have you ever
Yeah, I
been
have
there?
been, Brown. It's pretty cool. Nothing like artisan sausages in Union Square.
Well, one really nice thing is, so I was running my show at a studio off of Lowell Street. Then we moved over here. And every time in the night, like, there's a really nice aroma from Union Square. It, like, always smells really good in the square. So shouts out to you, man.
Yeah, hey, love it. A lot of great. No reason to go anywhere but Somerville or even in Union Square to get a bite to
Well,
eat.
dude, can you just kind of explain what's going on with the pit of construction,
Yeah,
though?
yeah.
Because it takes like 100 minutes to get through here.
Well, I tell people you're only going to be pissed off for a little while longer because hey, we're doing about 50 years worth of infrastructure work in the next 3 from the major work happening here in Union where you're doing
Is that the Green Line extension? Is that
well,
what it is?
you have major water and sewer separation happening in the street, and then when it's done, the street surface will be incredibly incredible in terms of offering more low carbon multimodal options, protected bike lanes, and expanded walkability. And the empty lots across the street and near the rail bed, you get the Green Line construction going on. Then you'll have the development that's going to be kicking off. That's starting up in Union Square, and all this sort of utility work supports really the work happening around the Somerville Ave project.
And so I would be remiss if I didn't ask, like, when will that stuff be totally over?
Oh, sure. Well, the stuff in the street in Somerville Ave, that'll all be done in about 18 months. Yeah, a little over a year, 2021. We're really excited about that. And then
How
Union
old will you
Square-
be in 2021?
No comment.
I think I'll be 25. I'm 23 right now. Is that how the math works? I think. So, well, back to you being a really fast decision maker. Are you ever able to shut it off? Like, are you able to just like ever just like, yo, Joe, chill out, dog?
It's hard, and one of the reasons you go to the gym, you run, you just hang out in a coffee shop, you just chill out with friends or your family is to ground yourself. You want to shut it off, but it's hard. For me, I'm high velocity, a lot of energy, love doing this work, and just being in Somerville. But that's the hardest part for me personally.
When do you feel like your game is thrown off? Like, when do you feel like your decisions aren't as concise? Like, what has to happen to you?
Well, I think it's the wear and tear. If I haven't shut it off and grounded myself, it's sort of self-choreographed, sort of.
You have systems in your head, kinda.
Yeah. It's hard to go, to pace that work in your head. You just want to keep going, but I think it's natural for people to want to do it. For me, even more so. So I think that's when you can just affect yourself and impact, and then you certainly can't be as productive on the work side.
So do you never feel burnt out ever? Like, just tired?
I'm not burnt out from the job. Do I feel physically tired? Oh, sure. I mean, I'm out there right now running, really, I think, one of the most progressive cities in the country, trying to lead that and trying to be a father of my 4 boys and my wife and I and do all their activities and campaign, knocking over 3,000 doors and engaging constituents, which I love to do. But when you put that all together, it's a grind.
It's a hustle, man.
Yeah.
But growing up, would your friends and like your family say, okay, you were kind of meant to, you kind of had a successful infrastructure growing up. Like, you were always going to kind of be a successful dude.
Yeah, I had a great infrastructure. I mean, I grew up here in this neighborhood that we're in right now and up in Prospect Hill, much like any of the neighborhoods in Somerville at the time. We were all kids whose families just came from either Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Italy, and our families all worked in the same factories. There was a really tight social fabric. The city was a lot grittier then, a lot dirtier. There was corruption, but the fabric was really tight, and that was really supportive. I don't think any of my friends would have thought I wouldn't want to run for mayor. Everyone asked me that, and I never thought of doing politics. In fact, I know at one point in my life I said I would never do it. But I think that was certainly critical for me. Successful, especially in the schools and stuff. The support I got here.
Well, at what point did you realize you had a certain emotional intelligence that a lot of people don't necessarily have? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to big you up too big, but for instance, my father, I actually think you might know him. And listen, I got this without my dad, okay?
Yeah.
But my dad, he works in unions. He's the president of a union called NAGE. And so he has a certain emotional intelligence that I think a lot of people don't necessarily have.
I think there are two things I pride myself on, and the two characteristics I try to find in people when they want to come work in the city. And I found that in successful people. One, do you have a passion for curiosity, which I do. People say, "Oh, the most innovative city in the country." No, I think we're the most curious city. And do you have a willingness to be abnormal, which I have. I'm just that way.
You're just a weirdo.
Yeah, I'm an abnormal guy, and I think abnormal is great. When you think about how you enable collaborative creativity in the community, or in a startup, or in an incubator, or any type of effort, it's that bump factor you create from really passionate, curious people willing to step out, to be abnormal, be probative of what's in front of them. Leading a city like Somerville, it's not about finances. I mean, people think, well, you need to be a CEO, needs to be a financial wizard.
Well, you want to run a well-oiled machine, though, right?
Yeah, we do. But it's how you process, how you engage. Are you probative? Are you willing to take smart risks, informed risk, and it's a much more complex job than it, because otherwise, you just need accountants or
boring.
Boring. I mean, it'd be kind of a boring type of thing.
So, if you were to not be mayor for the last, what has it been, 15 or
16 years?
16 years. Would you be a master salesman? What would you do?
I don't know. The thing about, I like to touch,
Sales
feel, and see it, and that's what's good about this job. You walk out the door, you meet people, and I use the example. I walk in my office one day at City Hall. I meet someone who's having an issue in their neighborhood. Maybe it's something on their street. It's a pothole or a tree or something going on that they're concerned, or something in their family. And I walk up the steps, and then I'll sit with a major investment team that wants to make a major investment in a place like Union Square or Assembly Row. So it runs the spectrum. And the great thing about being mayor is when you walk around the city, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can see it, and you're at the grassroots, you're face to face. I mentioned to you about retail politics. It's really so that retail service with the people who chose you to lead them. And that's what I find fulfilling.
But if you were to not be mayor, what would you be?
I don't know, man. I tell you, I'd be really good at radio.
You don't have a face for TV.
No, I have a face. I could do that also. I really don't know. I never even
Do you
thought
like?
about that.
Do you like the media?
I love it. Yeah, I think I utilize it for the benefit of Somerville. To push the narrative about the city. But I think it's, nowadays especially, I think you need many forms and different forms of media to communicate with people. It's important for us.
Well, yeah, but it's like, at least in my experience and what I've noticed with like big networks, mind you, I do the podcast as a brand extension.
Yeah.
I don't really have no interest in being in media long term, but there's a polarity in media now. And so is it tough for you to navigate, especially when you're campaigning, like, what to choose? Because you've been on Fox, right? You've been on CNN.
Yeah.
And are you hesitant when you go up to networks like that? Like, I kind of know who I'm going to talk to and I know what I'm dealing with.
I'm not hesitant, and that's typically on either a national issue and that a perspective of a municipal official like a mayor is important for that outlet, or a decision we made, or a value we're fighting for, like remaining a sanctuary city in light of Trump's agenda, here at the local level. And so you get invited on all those types of networks. Now, I have been on Fox, and at the end of the day, for the most part, I don't shy away from those things. You are who you are, and you believe in what you believe in. And I have no hesitation about standing up for what Somerville believes in, what this community's values are. That's what drives me every day. And you You listen to questions on those shows. You answer questions. But you're right. It is
But
very
you know,
polarized.
sometimes like when you were going up on a Fox News, you're like, hey, I might get in a punching match. You know that.
Oh yeah,
going into
yeah.
it, right?
You know ahead of time, and you know when to punch back. You know when to take it, and so sometimes just answering with basic logic is a very powerful weapon.
When you get in, and after this, there's a couple issues I want to just talk about in the city, but when you get into some sort of like political spat or like you have some sort of enemy or like political foe, how do you, after the issue's done, are you ever like, hey man, can I just like call this person up and be like, yo, are we cool? Is this all good? Is this just part of the game? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've had the answer is yes, and I've had that over the years, and
Because it's a sport
I mean,
almost, you know?
it is, and it's one thing. I want to make sure we're distinguishing the two. I've had passionate debates and arguments about the substantive merits of many different types of issues or policy decisions. And I think we know inherently that, look, we're just disagreeing on this decision. Still, you engage one another because, or we've had things that have gone a little bit beyond that. And sometimes the rhetoric in the debate seems personal, it can be taken that way. And I feel honest, and I'll admit, and over the years, I would have handled some debates differently. And I think it's important that we all realize in our community anyway, anything that we do is the product of many hands. So I try to always reach out and engage and say, look, we might have disagreed. Let's work on the next thing together. Nothing personal.
It's tough, though,
it is
right?
tough. And in this day and age, you've touched on it, we're in an age of digital media and social media, and sometimes it's not the authors of that debate, but sort of the disciples of that debate who are carrying the conversation a lot further, more personal depth. And you have your battle wounds. This job is certainly different than when I started 16 years ago, and I would say much different than even 3 to 5 years ago.
In terms of what?
Well, just the arena, the public arena is
More combative.
It is more combative. It is more personal. Social media didn't cause that. It is the conduit that has exposed a lot of that.
But you're also active on social.
Yeah, I am too. And you have to, you there's a difference. They're really ideological, some hateful attacks that come at people, and you need to know. When you have trolling, I think you certainly respond trolling, in my opinion, by denying it oxygen. And when you have, people want to debate you, well, or people want to mischaracterize or lie about the facts, you respond with facts and information. And you have to also understand, in this job, when there is anger, and there is not every decision is popular when you're a mayor or elected official a long period of time, and some of us changing their bold decisions, and it could be bold or simple as a priority bus lane coming to the city or protected bike lane. Someone loses their parking spot, or an important housing or policy decision. People feel a sense of loss. That parking space was important to me. I feel like I lost something. Or some of those changing, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to participate in that change, that economy. And you have to accept and absorb that anger, that concern, that sense of with grace, respond with empathy, and then just engage people. And it's not that's never happened before. I think we're just change is happening in this region and in city regions around the country at such a pace, and then you add on top of it the layer of really rabid and toxic national political dialogue, and it really adds another element to it that I've never seen before in my career.
Do you think that's across all mediums now, that there's just there's more aggression? Do you think that's just inherent?
Yeah, I do. I mean, these are the only sort of really engaged conversations we have in these types of.
That's what I'm saying. So let's say you have a beef with anybody out there right now, couldn't you just go somehow contact them, call them up and be like, hey man, this really is not that serious? You could, right?
Yeah, and we actually, I do that. You know,
You've done that recently?
yeah, I do that a lot.
No way.
Do that a lot, and then sometimes it's just contacting and knowing you need to sit there and again, tell me. Here's why we're making this. Tell me how you're feeling. I really want to hear it. And I think people want to know that you're going to listen and you're going to hear it.
It's just a lot easier, I think, it's a level of maturity. I think it would take just to just call someone up and say, hey, man, I know we're beefing in the media, but this is not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I got to be honest. I'm a lot better at it now than I was 16 years ago. And
Because you probably just got tired of fighting with people, right?
You know what? It comes down, you learn to become a better listener. I think leadership is all about listening.
And leading by example.
Yeah, and you go back I go back in every decision of my time period here and ask myself, what would leadership have looked like then? And, it's metaphorically, if we're going to go on this journey across the river on a rowboat, who are you bringing with you? Who leaving behind? You don't want to leave anybody behind, but reaching to that person, maybe they're on the other side of the argument, reaching out to them behind it and listening to them, maybe, I went through a lot of times back then, like, well, okay, they weren't with us, too bad, this is the right decision. And it may have been right. You may have said, you know what, that's the right decision, the merits, but leadership, I think, is really about listening and trying to bring as many people on that journey with you.
Sarah, any questions right now?
Yeah, don't feel too much narrative here, Sarah.
Is this camera still moving?
It's still on him.
Okay, great. I get paranoid about the tech setup
Both of them are
sometimes.
still-
So I want to know what McGovern talked about here.
Well, we
I
were
hope he
in
was
the
talking about
studio.
some. Okay, well, I hope he
We
was talking about
ran
some
the
of them.
interview way too long. Was it like 2 hours?
2 hours, yeah.
So, I was like, you got stuff to do today, man. So, a couple of issues. So, most of my demographic is younger people in the city. And so, as Sarah was being very pushy, she's like, you should ask him about this. You should ask him about that.
Of course she
This
did.
is my show, man. All right.
Yeah, really.
But one thing is, I leave college, right? I went to Providence College. And a lot of my friends, they leave school and they get jobs in corporate accounting or the boring stuff, right?
Yeah.
And let's say their base salary making like $60K a year. It'd be hard for them to move from college and start in Somerville just because the rent is high. So I understand it's like inevitable because it's an awesome city, but how do you like as mayor adjust with like rising rental prices?
You're right. It's we are in a housing emergency. It's real bad.
Well, I feel like Somerville's the last leg of all of Boston,
it's the
right?
region, and the entire metro Boston region is in the midst of a housing emergency. I mean, in Somerville, we're being impacted this way. One, there are not enough homes or housing units. The entire metro region needs an additional 438,000 units. And on top of that, people want to be in Somerville because it's a real progressive city. It's been on the rise. We've invested in bikeability and walkability. I mean, moving public transit like the Green Line here. So more people want to live here, and there's not enough housing, and that creates a strain of supply and demand. But you're seeing that play out in every city and town, again, in the Boston region. So we're well aware of that. $60,000 a year, that's not enough. And if you want to rent a 2-bedroom unit here, you need to be making over 80. So you see a lot of young people, and Somerville's now a younger city. I believe about 46% of the population is between the age of 22 and 35. How do you come here and work? And for us, we want you here. We need that talent, that skill set, because we're unlocking the tech economy, the research economy, the innovation economy, all part of it, and part of the vibrancy of the city. And so, how do we deal with it? Well, we need to make sure that we're able to enhance your ability to pay, stay. So, can we how are we addressing our goals around production of housing, which we are.
What is base rent right now in Somerville? It's like $1,400,
yeah.
$1,500.
On the lower end, yeah, for a 2-bedroom, more like $2,200.
Yeah, that's
Even
fat.
more, yeah.
What would a
A
studio
median,
be?
man, was it?
What would a studio be?
Probably around $1,400-$1,500, depending on where you are. I've seen them go up as high as $2,000 and plus, depending on the size of the studio. I mean, there are a variety of housing options in Somerville, but not to the extent we need in terms of the number of units available. So we have a big push on not just creating new units, which we are in places like Union and Assembly, because we have one of the highest inclusionary rates in our zoning. 20% must be affordable in the inclusionary section. But the big battle is on the neighborhood streets. We have 2 and 3 family homes. People on our streets, from my street, are being pushed out, and we don't want to just give you an opportunity to live in the new units because the city then becomes gated. We want the city to be integrated. Part of what attracts people to Somerville is it is diverse, it is creative, it's original. We speak more than 52
it's artsy,
languages.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's funky. It's a little freaky, which we love.
It's a little hippie.
Yeah, but the people love that, but we can't become a city that you only get to live in where we're producing the new units. And on every other side street, there are only condo opportunities. And nothing against condos. It does give people some opportunity for home ownership, but we need to have a good rental stock in any city. So our goal is also, how do we preserve housing? And one of the things we're exploring and hope to set off is an approach over, and this takes time, because you can't just turn this, you just can't flip an aircraft carrier around on a dime. The greater Boston area, since coming out of the Great Recession, 2010, I think has added more than 200,000 jobs and 300,000 people, and only produced about 84,000 units of housing. The state and the regions never prepared for the population growth.
It's wicked densely populated.
Yeah, and on top of that, we need to make sure we have public transportation, which should be free. And we shouldn't be raising the fees on public transportation at a time when it doesn't even work well. That is reliable, that is efficient, and I mean rail, buses, and continue to invest in bikeability, walkability. If we make it so that you don't need a car in Somerville, I mean, that's about $8,000 to $10,000 per year you don't need to spend. And really, you don't really need it right now, even with all the construction. But that has to play out across the region.
So that's the strategy, is you're trying to make other areas of life here more affordable so you can have more money to pay for the rising houses?
Well, we need to have more housing units. 1, 2, we need to also invest.
Are you building them right now?
Yeah, the housing units are being built. They are being built, but not at a rate across the region that meets the demand, to be honest. We also need to protect renters and their rights. They're being exploited here. So we passed a new condo conversion ordinance here, because there's a lot of, when people buy property and want to flip it to condos, there's been a circumventing of the laws. People aren't given the right notice. In many cases, people being displaced, and they pay their rent regularly. The level or the rise, there's been an incredible rise in no-fault evictions. Sometimes they're young people like yourself. They're seniors who just want to age in place in the city that they love. We also need to think about other opportunities, like giving the renters a first right of refusal. If I'm going to sell my home and I'm renting to you, giving you the opportunity first to purchase that home, and not just speculators who will come in the city dropping flyers on your house saying, I'll buy your house for cash as is, flip it. That's driving displacement out as well. So we have a big challenge ahead of us. It is serious. What I'm proud about is, in Somerville, we're leading the regional dialogue. In fact, I led a coalition of all the 15 mayors and CEOs in the inner core of Boston as head of the Metropolitan Mayors Coalition. And we set for the first time a major production goal just in those 15 cities of creating 185,000 new units of housing by 2030. But I want to be clear, the challenge is big. It's not going to happen overnight. We need, on top of individual communities stepping up to the plate, the state has to push has to be a leader in this. And other communities have to be part of this opportunity as well. I call it an opportunity, not a challenge, because displacement's happening everywhere.
Well, it's just tough for kids our age to be like, we want to live here now. We don't have to wait till 2030 to live in the city. You know what I'm saying? And then, so just so I clarify. So 1, you're trying to create more room for people's budgets to actually pay for here, and 2, you're creating new units in the city that will be affordable.
Absolutely, and passing renter protection legislation, so people aren't being
You're using
pushed
big
out.
words here, man. I'm just
so
trying
what
to
happens
simplify
is, we passed a new condo conversion ordinance because we found that people who are renting get displaced. When someone comes in and flips it, there's a lot of speculation coming in that's driving people out. We need to be really proactive in that way. We need to be bold. We need bold systemic change and not just chipping at the margins to really take on the affordability crisis.
Isn't that tough for you though? Because it's like, as mayor, you want your city to be making money, and like you want the local economy to be like combustible and there's tons of money coming in and people are working good jobs. But then just as a result of it, it just means the people who aren't making as much money are kind of getting left behind. That's like kind of a tug and pull, right?
It's a complex challenge, but we need to bring growth in the city because with that growth, when you have, for
gotta
example,
grow, man.
what's happening in Assembly, what
Just like
happened
those
in Union.
Curtatone traps, man. I see you.
Yeah, we get that money, we reinvest back into the community, into our housing programs, into our schools, into our infrastructure. If you're not growing, then we suffer the consequences not of having to cut those services out. But this isn't a big region. If this was the New York metro area, we'd be Brooklyn, as we say. We've suffered in the Metro Boston region for years of provincialism and parochialism. In other words, I got to do it for Somerville or Cambridge or Boston. I don't know, because if I don't do it just here, it doesn't help anybody else. And forget about all these other cities and towns. So what do you see in the Metro Boston region? You see a housing emergency of which we've never seen this extent.
This is the last leg of it, though. It's worse in Cambridge, I think.
Yeah, and in transportation, we're trying to compete in the 21st century global economy, provide people opportunities with infrastructure that was built when President Nixon was around. And they have $8 billion to spend on upgrades, and they can't even spend the money because there's not enough people. And, we need to align, because this is inextricable now, a housing policy with a housing plan, with a transportation plan, aligned with the plan to take on climate change, because it's all impacted. It's all tied together.
Okay. Talked about a lot of issues there. Just trying to take it one step at a time here, man. I got a high motor too, but man, yours is fast, brother. So, okay. Did the affordable housing. Next, on your Twitter, I saw you went to the State House and you support safe injection sites. One, can you elaborate on what a safe injection site is for those who don't know? And two, can you kind of explain why you do that? Because I've asked a bunch of people like, yeah, dude, what are your thoughts on safe injection sites? And it's there's a big polarity with the issue because some people think it incentivizes people to take drugs legally.
You're right. It is polarizing, and there's a lot of misinformation or not enough information.
Are there safe injection sites in Somerville?
No. Well, actually, they're happening by default. The safe consumption sites are happening in someone's basement or someone's bathroom, or people are actually telling their children or their siblings, do your drugs here, I'm going to watch over you. I'll have my Narcan at disposal in case something happens. We are in, amongst other crises, a opioid epidemic in the country.
Oh, yeah.
In Massachusetts, more than 2,000 people that we know of die of overdose every year. And in Somerville, 77 people alone, again, that we know of since 2014.
How closely is that linked with the homelessness in Somerville?
There's some of that. There's a lot of variables. I mean, sometimes there's a mental health variable. There's other, people are self-medicating and they end up with fentanyl and heroin. But here's the bottom line. The purpose of safe consumption sites is to reduce harm, save lives.
What is a safe consumption site? Just so people know.
In these sites, and they've been very successful in places like Montreal and in Vancouver. And their sites, they're buildings, they're spaces where there is a healthcare professional, and there are cubicles, and people go there and they take their drugs. It's either by injection or
with
orally.
Clean needles.
Absolutely. The sites also have referral services for those who seek assistance for their addiction. And the bottom line is they work. In all those places where they've opened these sites, they've reduced harm, they've saved lives. And all the data, and this is what changed me because I was totally against this a year ago, data shows that those who frequent the sites, people who suffer from addiction, who go to these sites, have a greater probability of seeking assistance for addiction than those who don't.
And we can't just is there a positive turnover on the assistance, though? Are these people actually getting better, or are they just seeking help?
They are. They're seeking help. But we need to do, there's not one silver bullet here. We need to do a lot of things right. I've heard from those in law enforcement saying, that's not the answer, safe consumption sites. And I say, you're right. But neither has the war on drugs been the answer. We need to, yes, we need drug enforcement. Yes, we need education. Yes, we need recovery and rehabilitation. But we need to implement measures that reduce harm and save lives. And in Montreal and in Vancouver, these sites have worked. It was a great decision, a really powerful one in Philadelphia, where a federal judge said Philadelphia can launch their site, which is important because we intend to launch in Somerville. Again, the worst call, you often get asked in these shows, what's the worst call you hate to get as mayor? There's a few of them, but one is one I get all too often. It's from my chief police or first responder or a family member or a friend or someone in the community saying, someone just died. There's been another overdose in Somerville. And I've gone recently as well to too many of those wakes, too many of those funerals. And I can think of no greater responsibility I have as the mayor or public officials to promote public health, wellness, and well-being. And sitting idly by, maintain the status quo is just going to kill more people.
Yeah, I get it. You got to take action and at least try something. Yeah. But on the other end, that would be taxpayers' money going to creating the safe injection sites, correct?
Yes.
So taxpayers would pay. And so I can see on their end why they would say, dude, why do I have to pay for someone addicted to drugs? You know what I'm saying?
So let me add a little bit more. Let me clarify. One,
does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. And we need to absorb that information and provide accurate information back. And when I've had this conversation with a constituent last evening, because I've heard, well, you're just going to enable drug abuse. That's not what the facts show. Facts show, again, that one, we reduce harm, save lives. People seek recovery because they're getting referral services. Two, you're going to create more crime in the neighborhood. None of that has occurred in places like Montreal and the others I mentioned. And thirdly, I would say, as a policy, we should be putting our money into promoting public health and well-being and into prevention. I'd submit this is prevention of further addiction, prevention of death. You know, no one, we're not the same age, but I'm sure you got the same question when we're in the elementary school. What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know if you recall, but I don't recall anyone raising their hand saying, I want to be an addict. All right? They want to live.
I want to start a studio in the back of a random warehouse.
I can
in
see you
and
saying
interview the mayor.
I can see you saying that back then.
I get what you're saying. Could you also institute a policy saying, okay, let's do a safe injection site, and then we'll also offer some sort of mental health service and like therapy? Because who knows if that will be effective too.
Yeah, yes, we can and we will. In fact, we're not just going to, and we haven't fully flushed this out. We're in the midst of our due diligence, but the intent is not to just pass out flies, but really to offer that opportunity for counsel and services, because you're alluding to really the complexity of what drives, what are the variables that drive a person to end up being homeless or to being addicted to drugs. And this is where we need, as every individual, to keep open minds, open hearts. Let's look at all the information. I don't ask everyone you need to be on board in this right away. All I ask is please look at all the facts, all the data, all the information, because it's pretty powerful.
When you like walk into Union Square and you see someone who's homeless, do you like do anything? Like, do you like say, hey?
I try to say hi.
Yeah.
Hello. And just remember, it's a human being just like you and I. And
well, I'm the same way. I'm just wondering, as mayors, like, shoot, like, what should I do right now?
Here's what we do. We make sure people are safe. One of the things we did in Somerville is every police officer now is trained in mental health intervention. It used to be in Somerville years ago that we'd move those people along. We're not helping them. And not every person wants to seek, and not every person wants to go receive services or go to a shelter. And we need to understand that there are a variety or many variables that are probably contributing to their position, their status in life. And we need to just continue to engage. Remember, they're human beings, making sure they're safe. They understand that we're there for them, that there's a service for them. We're willing to take them to those services. But we need to, I'd say that's what drives many people like myself, that we need a greater focus on mental health parity in this Commonwealth, in this country, and investment in those and that type of preventive health care. Instead of stigmatizing people who are either homeless or suffer from addiction, we need to pierce that veil first if we're going to actually want to help these folks.
Well, a safe injection site would also centralize or for the most part would centralize a lot of the homeless people and a lot of the addicts, correct? Kind of like what you'd see in like what they call methadone mile or meth mile.
Not exactly. I mean, someone who's a homeless is not necessarily an addict.
I understand.
Someone we may not even realize who is an addict. I mean, there are safe. A colleague of mine made the point. There are actually safe consumption sites right now, all around us, in people's homes, in people's basements. So these sites are run. They're clean. They're run professionally. There's a medical health professional on staff on site to intervene. It doesn't necessarily. Is not a very direct impact on the homeless situation. There are two different types of health consequences or realities we're dealing with.
How was that for a question, Sarah? How am I doing? Good?
Doing great, Connor.
Thank you. Working hard over here. Okay, cool. So one little gear shift here. Shouts out to you on Assembly Row. Looks great, man.
Yeah.
Killed it. Do you ever look at that thing and you're like, damn, I really did this?
I can't. I've gone down there, and I'll have a coffee at one of the cafes. I can't believe I'm sitting in Assembly. That was we were the stolen car capital.
How long did it take?
World when I was growing up. And that's a shout out to the community. We're talking about advocates and activists going back to 1998 now, 21 years later, who pushed the city, and people like myself that think more boldly.
Dude, it looks great.
Yeah, and there was a particular group, the Mystic View Task Force, which really led that charge. And they taught me a lot about really leadership in that example, about listening and empowering people to be part of a development decision. And it is really fantastic because we unlocked the natural resource of the Mystic River. When we opened up the Orange Line station, it was the first new transit station in Massachusetts in 27 years. No, it's about 6 years ago now, 5 years ago.
And is it completely developed now?
No, it's going to change for about the next 30 years, I'd say.
Dude, good for you.
And for the city, I mean, that is helping us. It's creating, thousands of new jobs.
I get it. Yeah, we got to shout out the city, but sometimes you can say, "Yeah, man, I got this done."
Yeah, I am very proud of it to be part of that. I really am, and that's cool.
And when Puma came over, did you say, "Hey," like, were you in the meeting with them saying, "Hey, I want to pitch this to you. Like, park yourself here"? Is that how it works?
Puma, no, I didn't have to pitch Puma. They found Puma. Where I really helped, and what we've tried to work together with that particular developer and others is, and it's easier now than it was 7 years ago to pitch Somerville.
For sure.
And people want to be part of our community, and they realize what we've been telling them for years, that this is about our originality, our creativity, the people that are here, the skilled workforce, where the investments we're making in infrastructure. And so companies like Puma were already attracted because we had set Assembly in motion. We had, I think, the big game changers when Partners Healthcare, the largest employer in the Commonwealth, put Assembly on the map. People used to say, well, it's not an office market. Now it's not this one. We'd say, it's not until it is. And when Partners came, we said, it is. And now Puma and others and tech companies are locating there. And I like Assembly. I like all our neighbors. We're all particular. Assembly, even though it's newer, still has, they understand and bringing in a lot of that Somerville character into it,
But so when Puma came, did you meet with like the CEO of Puma?
Yeah, I met with him. And
what was that like? Do you guys get along
cool.
well?
Yeah, he's pretty cool. I mean,
is he a European guy?
No, he's
an American dude.
Yeah, he lives up in the Merrimack Valley. Really cool guy. What impressed me more about Puma is they were bought into the community, and they wanted to participate in the community. They got it. They really wanted to be in Somerville. They wanted to be there. I could use them to make sales pitch on Assembly. For
sure. Well, I just had Reebok up on my show on last week. And Boston is a very competitive sneaker market right now. Do you know that? There's like New Balances here,
Converse,
Reebok, Converse, Adidas, and now Puma.
Yeah, and there've been more looking around the region.
Well, there's a shoe startup called York Athletics that you guys should look up. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
They're fresh. You should
Cool.
get some sponsored Puma sneakers.
I do
What's
have
the deal,
to get
man?
some. I will.
Are those George Washington shoes?
No,
what are those things, man?
They help me walk. What are you wearing though?
These are Reeboks, baby.
Are they?
Yes, sir. These are classics.
They are.
So,
I don't think I've ever seen that cut up with the. I guess I've seen it. Yeah.
I call these the retirement home 20s because your grandpops could rock these too. You know what I'm saying? But I could also rock them, make them look fresh.
Yeah, I'd wear them.
I'm surprised you don't wear sneakers if
I
you're
do.
walking around all day.
I do. Well, these are more my rubber sole. I walk around.
Well, dude, no one's gonna demonize you if you're gonna walk like 10 miles every day to go pitch yourself. You can wear sneaks.
I do. I do. And actually, your Pumas get some pretty cool, those casual type.
Tell them to sponsor the whole team. Sarah,
They
you should get some Puma
they're
sneaks
they're
too.
sponsoring a lot of our sports teams at the high school. They're really cool. They're everywhere. We're all about Puma now here in Somerville.
Yeah, after that sales pitch, the
Yeah,
successful
so-
sales pitch.
Unless York comes in and they went off from
York's great too, and Reebok's great. And if you want to do some ad dollars for the show, you just let me know, man. I'll keep plugging you. So, okay, Green Line extension. When's that done? 2021.
2021.
Nice.
happening,
You can take the T to Somerville.
Yeah, I mean, when the Green Line is fully operational in 2021, that'll take 25,000 motor vehicles off our streets every day. It's big.
Okay.
And the community path along the Green Line extends from where it ends now at Lowell Street all the way into Boston. So you're combined bike ped path. So again, enhancing that biking and walking infrastructure.
Hey, you got the summer sales pitch down. Somerville
Yeah,
sales
man,
pitch
I'm
down.
rocking. I
You
can't
got
wait.
it.
Yeah, I tell everyone, listen, the congestion is bad overall in the region. It's the most congested region in the U.S. Somerville is particularly difficult with bridges closed. You're going to be pissed off at us for a little while longer, but it'll start getting better in the spring.
It's a long-term
Yeah,
thing. I get
yeah.
it. Okay. Additionally, why kids our age don't care about politics? Just the truth, honestly. Some do. You know, I'm sure Sarah does because it's her job. But why should anyone my age actually really care? Affordable housing, obviously, some other issues. Why should they care about the election and what actually affects us? Like a 23-year-old, 6'3", handsome, young entrepreneurial man
Yeah.
like myself.
And we'll emphasize handsome there.
Thank you. Except the hairline's tucking
well,
back
you,
a little bit.
Well, you should care because I make decisions, and we, myself, members of the city council, make policies and decisions every day that impact your life.
I know. What are
immediately.
they?
Around housing, around transportation, around what we're going to invest in. You mentioned the arts, or the schools, and the overall quality of life of the city. That impacts you daily. On top of that, we're trying to, I find myself, I'm fighting the Trump agenda in Somerville on a daily basis.
Here we go. This guy hates
Right?
Trump.
Making sure Somerville remains a sanctuary and welcoming city. Standing up for the people who live with us, work with us, their kids go to school with us. So, yeah, I understand people are focused because of the nature of the national politics, but we're seeing the impacts of that localized right here in places like Somerville. And that's why you should care about it and should be engaged.
I think it's tough, and it's been tough for me too to figure out how Trump's presidency has directly affected my day to day. I don't know if I can really analyze it, and so that's why I'm saying, like, let's say I don't live in Somerville, but if I did, what decision would you make on a day to day basis that actually would affect my progression of my day? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I would say one, his policy around immigration and against sanctuary cities, and if you care and believe that America should believe in its ideals of being a diverse and tolerant society, well, you should care about that and who your elected officials are. Folks like myself and others around the Commonwealth to fight for the communities to remain sanctuary communities, are welcoming, fighting to pass the Safe Communities Act at the state level. If you care about climate change, well, then your local officials matter because we're seeing the impacts of climate change localized here in places. I'm glad Boston today announced they're going to be carbon neutral by 2050 following Somerville's lead from 2014. What are we doing to invest in climate action? Because that impact is being felt day to day here at a local level. And though we have a president who doesn't seem to think climate change.
A way to
global warming
simplify it
real.
is saying, like, yo, do you want clean air when you're like 35?
Yeah. Do you want clean air? Do you want to be able to live in your community? Do you want housing? Because the federal government has run away from housing, and it's at the local level we're fighting that battle. And let me put it this way. 54% of the world's population lives in city regions like the Metro Boston region. And by 2050, that'll rise to 75%. And it's here at the local level where you find the most practical, progressive leadership in most cases, advancing the cause, taking on the challenges on housing, public health, climate change, transportation. And the question, we have is what kind of community region we're going to be. And so whether you live in Somerville or some of the surrounding community, you need to be tuned into your local politics because here we're either advancing.
You got to
that
make it
movement or-
sexier, though,
Yeah.
Mayor. You got to make
Yeah,
it sexier. You got to be like, it'd be cool to go out there and vote today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it would be cool, especially if you're going to vote for me.
Hey, if
November
I
5th.
lived in Somerville, I'd vote for you,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
How is your campaign strategy any different now? Is it? I mean, you probably just know most people in this. What is there? 80,000 people in Somerville.
There's more than 80,000 people now, but hey, you go
You've
out.
developed a brand for yourself.
You got to remind people, and I've never taken this for granted. No one's going to outwork me, especially at the doors, and I love
Especially with
going,
your brain, man. After meeting you, you got a crazy motor, dog.
I love going to the doors. I go by myself.
I love it too. It's fun.
I go by myself, and people usual reaction is, "What are you doing here? You're here at my door." I'm like,
See, I'm getting your vote.
I need your vote. Yeah, and it's great, and the people are appreciative. It's disarming, but it's the best way. And people, you should. I think it's the least. Myself as an elected official, we'd all should be doing is going out and asking for your vote. I might have been I may have been mayor for 16 years. I don't take that for granted. I intend to earn the vote. I intend to win and continue. I'm pumped up about the challenge. I'm psyched about the success, but I'm more pumped up about the challenges ahead and to lead this community through them.
Do you ever want to glow up and have a higher position than mayor on a state level in politics? You've obviously thought about it.
Yeah, I have. Maybe. We'll see. Right now, I'm going to do this job, and at some point, I'll be done. Whenever that is, hopefully, because it's my decision. And I'll tell you what. No matter what, I would say this to everyone.
What would you want to run for next? U.S. Senator?
I have no idea. I got to be honest with you.
Come on, I see you smile.
No. And by the way, no. There'll be at the local level. It's where it's at. I got to be honest. No matter what, if I was to do something else down the road, I don't think I could find a more fulfilling job or responsibility than being mayor of Somerville. It's been awesome. It's hard. It's complex, but the people keep you on your toes. It's kind of like Red Sox fans and their baseball team, or they'll let you know when you're doing great, and they'll let you know when they don't approve, and they keep you going. They challenge you to do more.
Well, they'll probably let you know they're pissed more than when they're happy.
Yeah, it's okay. It's the job.
So this is something I asked my dad too. I said, do all local politicians feel incentivized to vote for the hometown candidate? Like, is that a thing? Because Mark said, he's like, it's no secret me and Elizabeth Warren get along. Like, is that the same thing for you? It's like since she's from the state, you kind of have to support and vote for her.
I'm sure there's some of that. I'm backing Elizabeth because I believe in Senator Warren. She is a friend, but I think she's the best candidate in this race, and there's a lot of great candidates. For sometimes for elected officials, there's a lot of that. And there's one thing of getting back in, but who's going to go out and work? I intend to go out and work and campaign and anywhere in the country that they send me to. I really believe in her candidacy.
And then maybe if she gets elected, what if she's like, hey, Joe, I want you to be my Secretary of Labor?
Only if I can bring this show with me.
I'll be the head of media.
What? I mean, think about it. What public official has a traveling podcast? That'd be pretty cool. No one's done that.
Well, you'd have to get Sarah a bigger budget to do stuff like that.
I know. She has an important role here. She's done a lot in this show today.
Hey, do you have any questions? I know this is your boss, but if you have any questions, man, feel free to rip them.
You can ask him about the work he's done on lowering the voting age locally.
How old do you got to be?
Well, right now 18, but we put forth the home rule legislation, local legislation to the state to allow that age for local elections to be dropped to 16.
Dude, what rational decision could a 16-year-old make? Why would we ever be okay with that?
You only see that because you find yourself at 25 still making irrational ones. But that 16, we see that. Just look at the work on against climate change, and for improving the gun laws.
Dude, I was smoking
safety.
weed in the woods at 16.
Well, now you can smoke it still at 16 legally. You don't have to be in the woods. Not at 16. You can smoke it. You don't have to be in the woods today. But
everyone's boofing up in Union Square.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, we need. You just ask yourself. Young people don't want to. You said yourself they want to participate in elections, and what we want to do is have more people in the political process because, especially young people, we need their ideals. And all the studies show that the earlier people get engaged into the civic process, the longer they'll stay in, or more consistently. And we find too many people not participating, and we can't have that. Not just voting, people voting, be involved in their community, running for political office.
How old are your kids?
My oldest is 16.
Oh yeah, so he's
14.
got a bunch of friends. So, yeah, you
Yeah,
want,
no,
you want him to
believe
gain
me.
a vote for you.
Believe me, it wasn't him. 16, 14, 13, 11 of my boys.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it's all men in the Curtatone household.
Yeah.
Who wins in a fight?
My wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you cool with getting the weed bill passed through?
I was a big proponent.
You smoke?
No.
Me neither.
A cigar on occasion. That's it, but no weed.
Yeah, weed makes me a little whoa. Mark said he dabbled a little bit back in the day. Doesn't surprise me. He's a Cambridge hippie.
I think Cambridge, it was legalized in Cambridge before anywhere else.
Oh yeah, honestly, I'm sure. Okay, cool. So I pretty much answered everything. You're backing Warren because you think she's the most progressive candidate?
I think, yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of
I think she's
progressive,
proposed a
yeah.
lot of like actual plans.
I love how she's run. First of all, she's been an incredible U.S. Senator, and I believe in her candidacy. But I love the way she's running her campaign. She has put forth a lot of really, you can call them bold, practical, progressive plans, and she is doing things we should have been doing in the Democratic Party for a long time. Engaging people, going into the political lines then in places where people haven't gone, and listening to voters and constituents. And I mean, you see it in the momentum, right? I mean, she's on an upsurge.
It will be interesting though because I still feel like Massachusetts will probably be a tight race, don't you? I feel
Between
like
her and Sanders or Biden?
I think Biden.
We'll see. There are a lot of great candidates on the Democratic side, and there are a few lifetimes left before the primary process is done. And no matter what, I'll be behind the Democratic nominee. I will say for Elizabeth.
You really
I
hate
wonder how-
Trump's guts, huh?
I've
seen your Twitter, man.
Let me tell you. I mean, let's say he's off the tracks, and this is not a. I mean, he shouldn't be running the water in the faucet in my bathroom. Never mind the country, and we had for Elizabeth. I wonder how we'd be viewing Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, if she was a man. I mean, but I got to say, she is sturdy. She is strong, and she'd kick his ass.
And Curtatone, he wants
All
that
right.
big promotion. I know
Yeah,
what's
I
going
know,
on
it's
here,
not
dog.
But no matter what, I'll tell you, I'm going to back whether it's Biden. I'll as one person and what I can do, whoever that nominee is, I'm going to fight for whoever he or she may be.
What do you think about Andrew Yang?
Pretty interesting. Reading more about him, yeah.
Do you believe in automation? Like, do you believe it in its inherent dangers and effects?
I don't know if I fully believe in it, but only because to be honest, I need to
Research
understand
more.
it better. But I like some practical things he did about letting people control, make their own decisions, empower them to make their own decisions. I think he puts forth some pretty probative things, some abnormal things, if you want to call them. And I think it's a great part of the dialogue. You have an interesting array of candidates.
Well,
Really good ones.
he thinks that in all his work in the Midwest that a lot of blue-collar jobs are going to be automated pretty soon, like truck drivers. And so I wonder if automation will come to like a city like Somerville kind of soon.
I think automation is going to come.
Like, will the buses be self-driving?
I think they all will be. And
Good, you're good to go.
we're talking about automation in what form, automated vehicles. I'm going to see that. It's definitely going to happen. In cities, we need to be, self-driving cars, be prepared for that, self-driving buses. So saying a buddy of mine years ago told me when he was in grad school in the 80s and business, getting his graduate business degree, his professor said to him, this internet thing, I think it's going to be pretty big.
It was.
And people thought it was far-fetched at that time as well. I mean, so I think those points that Yang brings up are real.
Is this still rolling?
Yeah, it's good now.
I'm so paranoid of that. I don't know why that happened.
Don't worry, I'm keeping an eye on it.
Okay, thank you.
She's got your back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here's another thing. I want to talk to you guys afterwards, but I'm looking for another live producer. So if you know anybody who's like pretty talented in Somerville, a kid on a media tip savvy, hook me up, man.
All right, we can do that.
I'm sure you got a legion of people.
I have a whole cohort of media people
Exactly.
just waiting in the bullpen.
Okay. Also, what are your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard's policy? Are you familiar with Tulsi?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Tulsi Gabbard, but her latest policy, remind me.
I'm just saying.
Her
in general.
campaign.
Yeah, her campaign or candidacy.
I haven't, for me, I mean, it hasn't risen on my radar screen.
Nothing's too
nothing's
special
popped
about it.
out. I mean, again, a lot of good candidates. My focus has been on Elizabeth, and certainly paying attention to some of the other ones because I think they're bringing us some pretty good ideas.
Can I tell you guys something really funny?
Yeah.
Of course.
And this is on the media, but since we're all I would tell you this afterwards too, but I was walking around Fresh Pond in Cambridge, and I knew it was Elizabeth Warren that was in front of me. I knew it.
Did you run into her and Bailey? They
And
go
the
walk.
dog,
Yeah.
the dog, yeah.
Yeah, Bailey's the dog.
And so I was like, oh, I got to introduce myself, right? So I walked ahead of her, and then I got in push-up position, like probably 300 yards ahead of her, because I knew the dog would come up to me and accost me. So then the dog came and attacked me. And then she was like, oh, Bailey, get off, get off. And she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I just acted like I had no clue who she was. But I walked with her husband for probably like 150 yards. And I was like, you guys from Cambridge, blah, blah, blah. He's from Oklahoma originally or something.
Yeah.
Well, they had Patty's hats on. You ever been to Patty's in Cambridge? You familiar?
Yep.
Are you allowed to leave Somerville and do other stuff?
Yeah, I occasionally go out, but
What's the best food here?
in Somerville,
Yeah. I mean, you're
it's
not.
hard to say. No, I don't have. I mean, I have a favorite. If you want barbecue, I mean, there's really few places than that. There's a couple, but
Well, there's
Red Bones
Indi-
is still my.
Red Bones.
You want seafood? I go to Out of the Blue. You want Mexican? Right over here, La Cantina in Davis Square. Bob Rendon's place is my favorite. But I mean, you can't get a bad. It's hard to find a bad spot in Somerville.
Yeah, that was a politician answer.
Well, I would be
That's
honest.
like
I mean,
one
it's
good
rocking
spot.
here. I don't go. I really don't go. If I go outside the city, it's maybe I know the establishment. But
Okay. Hey, anything you're looking forward to coming up?
looking forward to this election to be over. I'm pumped up. I'm working hard.
When
but
is
it's a
the
time
election?
suck.
November 5th.
November 5th.
November 5th. Yeah, it just takes up time and just to get going on, for the next term. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And
Actually, but Honk next weekend. Honk Festival.
I'm not totally sold on the honk
You
thing.
got to go to Honk. You've never been to Honk?
I'm not sold on. It didn't really make sense to me when you were saying it initially.
Listen, then it's very Somerville. That's what you need to know. So you
Well,
need
is
to
it
go.
like the old Somerville or the new
No,
Somerville?
it's the new Somerville.
Oh yeah.
You got to go.
The
It's very weird. It's very
the hippie Somerville.
Yeah, you got to go. Honk is awesome. Kicking off on Saturday.
honk,
Yeah.
Porch Fest, all these cool stuff going
Yeah.
on in Somerville.
Love it. It's never boring here.
I know. Well, it's because it's run by a guy like you, man. Okay. One thing. So let's say there's a 23-year-old Joe Curtatone, right? You're just starting out, or let's say someone our age, they want to get into politics, they want to run for office, and they have no political experience. What type of things would you tell them to do off the bat?
First of all, don't do this. Don't sit down and think about all the operational things you need to get together. Do I need to bring a staff? How many people? I would say this. Do you have a story to tell while you're running? All right, then go do it. Go do it. Obviously, you're going to do it when you're campaigning at the doors and meeting people. Start calling up your friends, your family, people you know. Say, hey, I'm running for office. I need your help. I'm running because I really care about this issue. I care about the city. And it's a value narrative. That's the most important thing you need to do. All the other pieces will come in place. The other thing is, give me a call. I'd love to share my experience with you, and happy to do it anytime. I think, the more people, we need some younger people running for office here.
What type of disciplines would you develop at a young age?
To run for office,
Or to be a successful politician?
you have to be a good listener.
You also got to be a good talker.
Yeah, you can get that. Yeah,
Think about it. How fast did this hour pass for you?
I know. But
do
you
this shit all the
can
time.
you can evolve and develop. You really have to be. You have to be sincere, and you have to be a good listener. And you can communicate that sincerity, even if maybe articulate someone might be more. You can still communicate it with your sincerity.
You have to just be a good talker and listener.
Yeah.
And understand people's emotional intelligence.
Yeah, but people can get through the BS if you're a good talker. You have to connect on the value narrative. You have to feel that you're sincere. You're listening to their concerns, and you're giving them that earnest attention.
Okay. Well, hey, that's it for me. Listen, this is how we start and end the show. When did you enjoy yourself?
Had a blast.
Hey.
By fast.
Give me a big political. Ah, yeah, there we go. So listen, this is how we start and end the show. You say hi. your name, and this is my golden hour. Directly after, hi, your name, and that was my golden hour. Does that make sense?
Yep. Got it.
If you get it wrong,
I'm screwed.
you're going to blow everything we
Am I
just
looking
created.
into this?
Yeah, this one. This is still on, right?
Yeah, it's still on.
Sarah.
Connor, you're like half in the shot.
I don't have to be in this. It's okay. I'm on the show like
Get the better half, which
four
is
times
me.
a week. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Joe Curtatone, and this is my golden hour. Hi, I'm Joe Curtatone, and this was my golden hour.
Blew it. It's that was. That was. Go
My
again.
God.
Joe,
On the
again,
second-
man.
I'll do it from the beginning.
This is and that was.
Hi, I'm Joe Curtatone, and this is my golden hour.
Bang.
Hi, I'm Joe Curtatone, and that was my golden hour.
Well executed from a
Oh,
great
yeah.
guy. All right.
Do
man.
something.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That was great. Cool.